Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for joining me once again. You are always most welcome. Well, I've got my clapperboard ready, as you can see. You know what's coming next, don't you? That's right, it's the Airfix Stalwart review. Take two. So, you will all recall that I did a review of the Airfix Stalwart. Here it is. I did a review on this back in, was it June-ish? June, July, I can't remember now. Early July, I think. And yeah, there was a few issues with it, weren't there? One or two of the issues were design related, but most of the issues were quality related. And it has to be said, in all fairness, that I do believe, from what I have seen, it's not exclusive, but from what I have seen myself, I must have got the worst example, or one of the very worst examples that came out of the production line. And there's been a lot of variety of quality on this particular release. Now it's made in India. Airfix get a lot of most of their injection moulding is done there for cost reasons and scale reasons as well. It's not, I know it's just about money. Sometimes the UK manufacturers that have occasionally used and others cannot always produce at the scales required. So whatever their reasons are, it's made in India. And we have had a number over the years, a number of kits that have come out of this, presumably the same supplier, I don't know for sure, but I think it's probably the same subcontractor. And we've had some really nice kits, and not least of which was that Jaguar, which came out in March, April, so Easter time, wasn't it? It was lovely, and there was maybe, if you're really picky, you might have found out the offer, but there's nothing that I really commented on at all quality-wise. I thought it was absolutely fine, and a really nice kit. So they can get it right. I don't think it's absolutely a fact that they just can't get it right at that factory. We've seen that they can, so this is why I guess it's a bit frustrating, and I was screaming for this kit and screaming for the Jag. If you don't believe me, go back and look at my "Give us the kits we really want" video, which ruffled a few feathers last November, start of November, just before Telfer, I think. And I mentioned both those kits. I named them as kits I wanted Airfix to produce, the Jaguar and the Stalwart, and they did. So I was absolutely delighted. It was totally made up in January. And the Jag finally came through in April, and it was as good as I'd hoped. So I was very pleased with it, delighted. Got a great rave review, almost certain to be in the top 10 of kits of the year for sure. And then this came out, and I was like, oh, this is going to be brilliant. And it's a vehicle, that really interests me, and I like And then we opened it up, and some of you will recall that we had a few quality issues. Now, for those of you, if anybody's watching this and didn't see my original review, I think it's very pertinent. I'll put it over there at the very end of this vid. In the meantime, just to give you a flavour of what the problems were, which I think it is fair that we do that, because what's basically happened here is Dale from Airfix has now very kindly and personally got involved in this. I know he's put a lot of effort in. Hats off to you, Dale. Because basically I complained and I said I didn't think this was good enough, not of merchantable quality. There's been modelers going online saying, yeah, but you can fix it. No, I don't want to fix it. I don't want to fix somebody else's bad quality. I want to get the product I paid for and then do my own thing. And if I want to put aftermarket on it or weather it or do whatever with it, that's my choice. But it should be fundamentally good quality. And Dale was in complete agreement with this. And he said, I'm very sorry this has gone out. It shouldn't have been the case. And he even told me that he personally felt they'd been let down by their supplier, without going into too many details. But anyway, so clearly they were as frustrated as everybody else, and it gives them a massive headache and I'm to try and sort this out, which they have now attempted to do. And I know that based on my delivery that's just arrived, so to give the full credit to Dale and Airfix, I got a full refund. But he then said, but, you're a YouTuber and you do reviews, and it was fair what you said. I'd like you to have another example, and we're going to carefully select it. But you see what's happened, I think. So here's the new example. This is not the original kit, as you'll be able to tell. And I'm just going to show you a couple of photographs of what the problems really were. And I say, the really sort of alarming thing about this whole tale really was the amount of variation through the runs, it seems. Some people's looked okay. I didn't see a perfect one with my own eyes, but most of the people seemed better than mine, that's for sure. Other people's were almost as bad as mine, but it was like a lucky dip. It seemed that it was just a question of sheer luck what you got. So just bear with me 1 second while I just zip past by a couple of months ago. Here we go. So these are the pictures that we need. Now have a look at this and then we'll compare it with what we've got today, and it'll give you a bit of a reference point, I think. I might have to move the old Stalwart back so I get my screen in. I think I might need a bit more angle. There we go. Right, so this is the original kit as it came to me, and you will note straight away we have got some very, very noticeable plastic polystyrene sink marks, especially here and all around the frames, all around the window frame. Really bad. I mean, I've not seen an Airfix kit this bad for decades, frankly. So that was one side, bit of a close up there. Then we've got the roof, and this is one of the worst parts. Just again, it's just sinking. It looks like it's just melted, doesn't it? It's all sinking in, almost like it's made of wax, you know. That was unacceptable. Then this was broken off the sprue, and again, lots of other parts. But you see the sinkage here, sink. Really bad, and sinking all around here. Really, very extreme. I definitely got one of the worst ones for sure, if not the worst. Strange, weird marks in the plastic, sinkage. Here, actually this part we will come back to because, yeah, there's a bit of a story there. So you can see that there's quite a lot of parts are affected. It's not just one. Then there was the front of the cab, which again was just awful, really. The finishing of it, the sinking here. Horrible, really poor. Not what you'd expect from an Airfix kit. And Dale, in all full defence of him, he said, no, that's definitely not, that's below our standard, it's not good enough. You know, so many parts where we had this sinkage or weird finishing on them. Now, there is one part here. Okay, so that's it. So there is a part there that we'll need to discuss later. But in the meantime, I think we should. It's very kind that I've been sent this completely free of charge. So this is gratis from Airfix. So I made that clear at the beginning. And you, when we open it, you will see that they have done their very best to try and make sure they give me a good one. Yeah. So I won't give you all the history apart from the fact it's a Cold War 6-wheel drive, all-terrain vehicle that can go and float in water. It's got powered so it can drive across lakes and rivers. Fantastic vehicle, really. A great subject for it. So let's have a look at what we got this time. Take two. So I won't bother things like the instructions because that's just repeated stuff. We've seen it all before. Let's have a look at those parts that I've just shown you there and cut straight to the chase. Now, some of you will remember that last week I was showing. I've just had a very big birthday, and I got a very nice set from Into the Armour. I think they're called. People that are doing 3D printed resin set, an upgrade set for this, which comes with some beautiful, beautiful parts. So if you haven't seen my September update, I'll put that down here as the other sort of promoted video. Have a look at that because it's got all sorts of upgrade parts that go with this kit perfectly. And I think in combo would be a really nice, kit you've got there. Right. So, in summary, what I noticed straight away when I opened this was, even opening the box, I could tell that it had been opened already, which is a good thing, because that's the whole purpose here, that Airfix are doing their bit and checking it. And Dale and the quality control manager tell me, personally, he went through them, so they went through these parts to check that it was going to be a good example. And you can sort of tell straight away. You can see they've been resealed, not in the full bags, they've got tape on them, you see. Which is fine. So, again, the parts are just cleaner, better formed. We've got, I'll see you in so you can see a bit more detail rather than me just chatting them in the background. Here you go. So this is the tarpaulin cover. Now it wasn't, there's been some discussion by me and many others about the design of this. Also, there was a slight design error whereby if you look on the bottom, this is where the tarpaulin folds over. And you can see that if you look very carefully, there's just like a ridge around the holes, that are the eyelets. But on this part, it got forgotten. There was a design error. Now, Dale has held his hand up on this and said that's just a definite error, which is what we all said anyway at the time. So obviously that hasn't changed because they can't change the mould. A little bit annoying, and as I said, there were one or two issues with design on this, which I think, with hindsight, Airfix, I think are probably realising that they probably won't do again. I don't think putting the exhaust cover in a clear part that wasn't. I know why they did it, because of the difficulty of doing that. It's a bit sharper and Clear parts tend to be a bit sharper, more defined, but it still doesn't really work. So anyway, we'll leave that aside. All these parts where we've got the running gear, the suspension, they all look absolutely tickety-boo, so I'm not even going to bore you with that. Absolutely great, which is good news. Oops. It's actually easy to get them in the bags now. The bags are not as big. This makes they've actually improved the packaging, probably quite accidentally. Will it go in the bag? Come on, let's not have another one of these ICM stories where I can't get it back. Okay, we're just going to put it in that way. Play it. Right, so that's that one. Another small one here. Now this is an important one to start with, really, because this is one of the parts that did have some annoying sinkage on it. There is still a little bit of evidence of it, but not much. It's not like the ones before. I don't think on those photos I actually showed you this particular part, but you can still make out a little bit of sink around here. But before it was just, you know, it was proper sunken. This is a lot nicer, and you know, you can see little hints of sinkage on a lot of kits sometimes, but not so much that you think that looks awful or it's in a really obvious place or whatever. That's on the back of those cans. You probably position it so it won't be seen anyway. Not really an issue. So we won't dwell on that either. Let's get into the real meat and potatoes of the kit. So we had the this sprue I should say. We had no real issues with the wheels, although I did explain at the time. I'll just reiterate my own personal view here. I don't like them, and it's not just Airfix, lots of people do this, including Revell and ICM do it sometimes. I don't like having split wheels. I much prefer some other solution where they're in one piece and you don't end up with a seam down the middle. But most people are saying that actually it's not too bad on this. Because it does have a natural central ridge, it's fairly easy to just sand it and it's not obvious. So actually on the design of tyre, it's not such a problem. But there has been comment made, I have to say. A lot of people have commented that when you actually look at the photographs that the tyre treads are not deep enough. They look very worn, shall we say. So it probably lends itself to a diorama where it's a bit of a haggard old one. Anyway, coming up to the real point in hand is this. Here we have a couple of parts that were suffering from these marks, surface quality issues and sinkage, and it's the front screen protector plate, and this one's fine. I think that's absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with any of this. So these parts seem to me to have escaped any of these problems and been correctly moulded. Everything, the pressures look good and it's just normal, isn't it? It's absolutely fine. So that's very good. I've also got no parts that are busted off this time, which I had a few of last time. So we're looking like we might have a chance here. Maybe just a chance that this is going to be a positive story in the end, and I can give it a new score. Now, if you remember, I was criticised, and rightly so actually, because I actually apologised to a few of my viewers afterwards. I was so taken up with wanting this kit. I let myself, it didn't help, I didn't have my new glasses, which I've got now, super Zeiss lenses. I know somebody accused me of, how did he put it, whoring for Zeiss, or basically marketing Zeiss products or something like that. Very rude. How dare you? I can assure you I'm not. If I love a product, I'll say it. You know, whether it's Tamiya or it's Zeiss or whatever it is. But I didn't have the quality of lens, and yeah, I'll come back to that in a second, talking about seeing things and missing things. So here we have one of the most critical sprues, which on mine, this is sprue A. Mine was just blooming awful. I mean, there was sink everywhere, all the major surfaces, and you saw in those photographs. So I'll start with the parts of the chassis, the side of the hull, and you will see here that we have absolutely just banished sink. So don't be misled by these sort of faint marks that are in the plastic itself. That once you spray your paint on, that just vanishes. But we've got nothing on the other one. It was all here was sunk. It was sinking all around here. It was just terrible. One of the worst examples of sink on any kit I've seen for many years. This one is absolutely fine. I mean, it just looks clean, exactly what I expected the first time, really. There's still a strange market. I think this is just in the plastic, possibly, but maybe it is in the mould. It's not an issue because it's underneath, really. So again, I'm being a bit splitting hairs, but it is a rather strange mark there. And it was on the other one as well, but this one's not as bad. I mean, this is cleaner in every sort of respect. Now we get to the real meat and potatoes, and we come to the front. Now there is some curious appearance of the plastic itself. It's still not the cleanest mould I've ever seen, but again, there's no sink, and it was all sinking around here and sinking here, and there was just the weirdest marks, very ugly sort of strange surface texture, all gone. And by the way, this isn't flash, folks, any of you that think it is. No, that's the internal side. That is where the heater elements that blow hot air on the screen to keep it clear from demisting, especially when it's going into the water. Vital. Here again, we've got quite a few areas. Quite a few areas where we had significant sinkage, and none least than here. Now there is a faint hint of it, but I'm being very picky. You know, it's only because I know that there's been a history, really. If I'd have got this the first time, I'd look at that and say, that's very nice, that's very nice. On the other side, which was absolutely appalling on the other example as well, there are sort of hints of... There's a hint, but I believe once that's spray repaint, you won't see this. On the other, you would have seen it. There's no escape on the other. It was just like it was made of candle wax. It was terrible. So there is still some hints of it. I still don't think the moulding's the best I've ever seen, but it's certainly acceptable now. And then, and this was probably the worst part in the whole kit, this one looks absolutely bob on. Look at that. The other one just looked like it was just almost like a liquid. It was like Terminator 2, where he turns into liquid and it all becomes very contoured and melty. Now, you know, it's like when you put your cheese under a bit of cheese on toast, you put your cheese under the grill and it all turns into liquid. It was like that, wasn't it? Well, now we're okay. Even the definition here, I think, is much, much better. I know there's been some controversy about this. And on that Into the Armour resin kit, that gets rid of all this section, in fact. So I may well use that if I build the kit, which I probably will. Not soon, folks, but it'll happen. I'll be building this. It's a nice little project for a couple of weekends, you know. Maybe over Christmas or something, but not this Christmas. Okay, so that's really nice. That's really nice. I think that's a huge improvement from what we had. And had I had this in the original kit, I would start getting upset. Now, finally, we've got sprue B. This is the one that has, just zoom me back a bit. This is the one that has all these sort of load area in it, the floor, and yep, it just looks fine, really. It looks all right until we come to this one. Now, I must explain this before people jump and start screaming at the screen. That's not great. Now, this is the rear. It's the rear. Is it the rear or the front? Anyway, it's the load compartment. It's the back, isn't it? That isn't very nice. Now, Dale from Airfix said to me, please give us your feedback. And he actually sent me this email. And pretty much as the email was arriving, I was actually taking delivery of this kit. And this is the one part where I said, and I opened them yesterday and flicked through it very quickly. And I showed him how good they were. And I showed him a comparison between the old and the new. And this is the one where I said, I've got to be honest, the rest of the sprue looks absolutely bob on. Even these that were horribly sunk look absolutely fine to me. But that one is a bit nasty. And he took one look at it and emailed me straight back and he said, oh, I don't know, we've missed that. He said, maybe he must get maybe he hasn't got Zeiss. Maybe he doesn't wear glasses, I don't think, does he? But I think it's just been missed. Perhaps they've been looking at the back, worried about the sink, because there is a hint of a little dimple actually there on the back. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in terms of Airfix's requirements going forward with their subcontractor. That's not good enough, and he just took one look at that and said, I'll get you another sprue. So please don't judge them too harshly on that. For me anyway, he said, I'll resolve that, it's no problem. I'll get it to you next week, in a couple of days. I mean, he doesn't have to send the whole sprue, just get that part, I'll be quite happy, to be honest. But again, there's something weird going on, isn't there? I don't want to dwell on this, because I know some of you are going to be tutting, and yeah, rightly so, in a way. It shouldn't be down to Dale and his QC manager to be doing this, though, I don't think. It really should be at source. And somebody, preferably a model builder who's got a keen eye, needs to look at things like that and say, no, we don't want, just put that in the reject pile, you know. But it is a shame because every other part on there I think is really acceptable. Now this is another part, just remember this was one that was really poor on the original kit, which is the rear light cluster and the sort of fender bar at the back, bumper bar. There is still, just above the lights, there is still just the tiniest hint of sinkage. See, I do wonder if it's to do with the nature of this green plastic. I wonder if that's a fact. I don't know. But that's acceptable. On the other one, it just wasn't. It was just like, they were like holes almost. It was absolutely tragic, to be honest. My exhaust is still on this one as well, which is nice. So it's not 100% perfect, but I've got to give Dale full credit, and he said, just don't worry about that. And ordinarily, I would have waited a week or two to maybe show you that one. But it's only fair that I'm honest about it, I think, and I say, and just be completely open and say to people this. Two things, important takeaway. Still not quite perfect in terms of what's coming out of that factory, is it? You can see, well, it is otherwise a good sprue, and one's got these weird marks on it. Something's not right there. So I'm sure that they'll be investigating that. But the other side of that coin is he's agreed to do something about it. It's got to be fixed. So I'm perfectly happy. My beef is gone because they've done the right thing for the customer, and with me they've been very generous and let me have it for no charge. And it's because of that. You know, I'm not going to lie because of that. As you've just seen, I've still found one issue, but they're going to resolve that for us. So I'm not unhappy in any way. But the very important thing that I want to pass on, which Dale said, and I think he wanted me to pass on to everybody, pretty clear. Clear parts, I mean, they'll be fine. They were fine on the first kit, no issues there at all. But he did say to me this. he said, I hope if I can resolve that one last bit. He said you'll be happy with that, which I will. Quite happy. Thank you, Dale. But he wanted this message to be passed on. He said, and I could tell from the box it came on, there are 1,500 more have been issued, 1,500 examples. And I'm working off memory here, but was it? I can't remember, it was 7,000 or 7,500, I think, of the original kit. So I'm guessing about a third or a quarter of them must have had major issues, you know. But it may not be as simple as that. It may just be they've had an initial run of 1,500, which are better. Somebody clearly has been, I'm sure this whole thing's been escalated and somebody's monitoring it, but that's still slipped through. But Dale wanted me to tell everyone that watches this video, I think, that they do now have plenty of stock. So if you have got, don't feel, oh, well, mine's not as bad as those photographs. Never mind about that. If you've got any parts that are badly formed, short shots, because there was a couple of short shots, I don't think mine had it, but somebody else's did, I did see one. If you've got any blemishes or this sinkage, the sinkage was absolutely terrible on the one I had. And as you can see, that does not suffer from hardly any of that. So if you've got any of those issues, contact Airfix and ask them to resolve it. Take a photograph, tell them when you purchased it, where you purchased it, blah blah blah, and they will directly resolve it for you. I don't think you'd have to send it back unless it's the whole kit. You might have to return it then. But if it's just one sprue or a couple of parts, just make sure you can show it, documentary evidence, you know. And they are open to now resolving customer complaints on this kit. So that's the takeaway. The news is they've now got them and they can do something about it. So I think that's fair that I pass that on, really. So, in summary, assuming that part B7 gets replaced, which I know it will, so I'm taking that as a given, as taking that for granted. Where am I? Because now this is the thing that I got wrong the first time. I gave it 9 out of 10. And even 24 hours later when it was published, the actual video was aired, and I thought, it's not a 9, Peter. This is ridiculous. You sound like a fool. I think 6 or 7 of that example. It was so bad, the quality. Now we've got somewhere. Now we've got to a nice kit. Okay, it's not perfect. There's a few design issues I'm not sure about. I think it's a 9.5, which is what I always expected it to be, sort of thing. If it was going to be normal, you know. I think I gave the Jaguar. Did I give it 9.75? I think I gave that. I think this is a 9.5, and I think that's where it should always have been. For the money, under £40. I paid 39. Well, I'm not sure what they are now. I paid direct though as a pre-order, so it might be a bit more. Between £39 and £45, let's say, is the price range. It's quite a good value. It's quite a big kit. I think it's got a decent chunky vehicle. It's got a lot of elements with it. You've got the open hatches, you've got an interior. It's all there, isn't it? So don't. It's like anything. Airfix have proven the #1 rule of customer service. It's not about whether you screw up, it's how you put your errors right, and that is what they have now done. And they are basically saying to me, and we'll do this for other people. So, you know, they will fix this for you. If you've got an issue with this kit, if you've got a bad one as well, let them know. Contact the Airfix customer service department, speak to Liz or one of the other girls. They'll sort it for you. They'll sort it for you. So it's a 9.5 out of 10. So well done, Airfix. Got there in the end. I'm pleased to have that back in my stash next. The tragic one went off to the summer fair for raising money for charity to less discerning customers, if you know what I mean. So I know some kids actually. A young lad got it. I think he was delighted. So it's fine. So it did some good. And, you know, all's well that ends well. I'm going to end up with a nice positive story, to be honest. I do think that going forward, Airfix will. I'm sure I don't need to repeat it, but they are looking at this. They know there's an issue there. They've had a bit of a beating from many quarters on this. And I'm sure that they're going to tread very carefully with this subcontractor in the future. The fact that Dale said he felt he'd been let down by them, well, that tells you the strength of feeling, really. And, it's not acceptable that they can just churn stuff out like that. Modelers are by nature very detail-orientated and mainly quite OCD infected people, and they're going to spot horrible things like that. You know, I suspect that this manufacturer produces a lot of very basic plastic goods for most of the time, and they need to put their best people onto their Airfix production, I guess. And I'm sure that's what's going on in the background, I'm sure. So, my faith has been restored. I mean, I say the Jaguar was perfect. So somebody had an off day or somebody wasn't watching the QC that day, but I'm sure corrective actions will be put in place. I'm confident. Because it's very much in Airfix's interest to make sure that we don't ever have any more repeats of this. It's really shaking people's confidence, I think. And they just can't afford to have that. You know, the market's tough enough as it is. Tough for them as a business. Hornby's struggling a little bit, and they need to. This should have been such a glorious good news story, and it's got a bit tainted. Not for me now. I've been patient. They've been very courteous, and they've done a lot of work. You know, the fact that Dale himself has been with his QC manager going through kit after kit is frustrating, isn't it? That's not his job. Yeah, crazy. Not fair on him. Not fair on the customer. Somebody didn't do their job, and I'm sure that they are probably not there anymore. Well, I'd like to hope they won't, because anybody that let that go through, not just mine, but there was plenty of them, plenty of bad ones that went through. Awful kits. But I'm delighted. So, no more moaning from me. There we go. All's well that ends well. So thank you very much, Airfix. All's turned out nicely. Be interested to see if they come up with anything new for Telford. Be interested to see. I've got my 2 wishes, so I feel I should be quiet about what I expect or want from them for a year or so anyway. Until I start getting... Well, everybody knows what I want from them. It's a Eurofighter Typhoon and or a Tornado 48 scale. A new one. But I'm not going to bang that drum loudly like I did before, simply because I got my... You know, it's like my fairy godmother Dale granted me my 2 wishes, not 3. So I'm due another one. Anyway, there we go. Thank you very much to Airfix for donating the kit and letting us see that. So you can see now that I've now reviewed a terrible one and a really good one. So it shows, you know, they've just got to make sure that their supplier understands to dial up to 11 their quality control and not let it drop below 10. That's for sure. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hope you thought it was fascinating to see another variation there. So it's 9.5 out of 10 from me. Hope you'll give me a 10 out of 10. Give me a thumbs up. And thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you again in the very near future. I've got some very interesting things coming up. Interesting kits for you to see. Really amazing stuff. Some quite incredible stuff coming up on the Peter Goes Rogue channel as well. Don't forget to check out my channel. And please, if you're watching this video, I will put the link to Peter Goes Rogue beneath. Please subscribe to Peter Goes Rogue, because what you see there at the moment is just the beginning. It's going to be a very, very different type of channel to my modelling channel that you're on now. But I hope to keep it still interesting and entertaining with other subjects and a whole variety of types of video. There's going to be cars on it, there's going to be cooking, there's going to be travel, all sorts of things. And I think you found it interesting. So please subscribe, because it costs you nothing and it's really important. We're going flying in a Spitfire in a few weeks, weather permitting. Try again. It's going to be third time lucky for me, would you believe? Because I got cancelled at Biggin Hill 10 years ago. Anyway, that's another story. I digress. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Till next time, stay well, stay safe. Thanks a lot. And bye for now.